Three Chances to Wake Up by Josh Peralt. Just outside the sprawling metropolis of New York City, Jane and Max were driving in the countryside. Jane was driving while eating a bright red apple. "You should stop eating while driving in this weather," Max said. It was a cold winter and the snowstorm was making driving very difficult. Suddenly, they hit an ice patch, and they headed straight for a telephone pole. The impact was immense. Jane was not wearing her seatbelt and was thrown from the vehicle. Max was more fortunate and was wearing his. He got out of the car and called 911. The ambulance screamed from the scene of the accident to the hospital. Max riding alongside his girlfriend. She was not moving, not awake, and not responding to anything. "Why won't you wake up?" he cried. At the hospital, the doctors worked to keep poor Jane alive. They rushed her into the operating room. Max stayed in the waiting room all night pacing around, hoping she would make it. He couldn't imagine living without his true love. He awoke to find the doctors standing around him. "We have good news and bad news," said the doctor. "The good news is that Jane survived the operation. The bad news is that she has slipped into a coma." "Will she wake up?" asked Max worriedly. "The damage to her body is severe, and we do not know if she will ever wake up," the doctor said in a somber tone. Max replied, more angry than sad, "There has to be a way to help her." The doctor, seeing his distress, replied, "The best thing to do is give her time to heal." 1 week after her accident, he was allowed to visit her. Still in a coma, she was hooked up to so many machines she looked more machine than person. His hope fell as he sat next to Jane's mother. "Anything happened this week?" he asked, hopefully. Jane's mother replied, "Not a thing. The doctors say that the more time in this state, the more likely she will never wake up." Filled with anger, he grabbed Jane's shoulder and shook it violently. "Wake up. Please, just wake up," he sobbed. Jane's mother replied, "Come back in a week. Get some sleep and shower. You look like a train wreck." "I will be back in 1 week's time to check on her," Max replied. The second week, Max came back to visit Jane, and again he asked, "Anything happened this week?" Jane's mother replied, "Not a thing." He responded with, "I have been waiting all week to see her and nothing has happened." He put his hand on her bedside and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Wake up. Please, just wake up." With tears in his eyes, he collapsed to the floor in anguish. Then even more bad news. "The doctors say that after the third week they will pull the plug because she will probably never wake up," explained Jane's mother. "Come back in 1 week's time for your final goodbye." On the third week, he returned to the hospital to say goodbye. This time in his visit, the whole family was there: Jane's parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles. They were all in tears saying their final goodbyes. Then Max leaned over the bedside and whispered, "My one and only true love. I will never love another soul as much as you. Every time I think about you, my heart sinks, but I will never forget the love we shared." He leaned over the bed and kissed her on the lips one last time. He got up and turned towards the door, tears in his eyes. When suddenly her family rushed towards the bed. Jane had awoken, and she said, "True love never dies." They embraced and lived a long, healthy life, barely spending a moment away from each other, and they lived happily ever after.